Hello and welcome to my video taking a look at Hyper Light Drifter. This is a game that came out a few days ago by a company called Heart Machine, indie developer. It was released on GOG, Humble Bundle, and Steam. And I have the Steam copy. I'm playing it here on my Linux rig because my main save is on my Windows machine, and I wanted to start a new save so I could show you some of the things about the beginning of the game that I think are pretty important to understanding the positives, the strengths, and maybe some of the weaknesses of this game. So, okay. What is this game? This game is a top-down action adventure game, I want to say. It's not an RPG. It doesn't really have any RPG elements. And if you want to get a sense of what its inspirations are, I think Zelda would be a big one. Maybe in terms of the art style, there's some considerable influence from Out of This World, but maybe also some influence from Evangelion. I mean, there's a lot of influences you could point to, but what I would like to say about the influences on this game is that while there are a lot of them you could suppose and point to, none of them are clearly predominant. So one influence you could point to would be Dark Souls. For example, if you look here at the top left of the screen, you can see the HUD. And on the far left, there are green blocks there, which indicate how many heals I have, which will restore my life gauge to full. And those are somewhat similar to Estus in Dark Souls. Or you can do this dash move, which you could certainly compare to the dash in Bastion, but also kind of functions like the roll in Dark Souls. This is a very agility-based game. It's a game that relies a lot on player skill in dodging enemies and timing attacks, and it rewards a very deliberate and considered approach to battles. You don't want to go rushing in and mashing buttons because there are some factors that limit you being able to do that. First of all, if you're going, like when you start the game, if you're going to do a dash, there is... Okay, so in the first place, you can only do 3 dashes in a row. After that, you need to wait. See, I can't dash, right? There's also a period, a considerable cooldown between each dash. Now, that does get better as you get an upgrade. If you go up here, this is the store where you can upgrade dashes. And you see this is the dash upgrade. Can't buy it yet, but there's trade-offs there. So these 3 dashes, right, they are slow. They have a considerable cooldown between them, but you can perform them at a regular pace, and once you're done the dash, you're done the dash. If you use the accelerated dash, then you have to time your dashes in a way similar to the waterfall kick that Gen has in the Street Fighter games. So that means you have to time your dash with a sort of slow and then faster and then faster and then faster and then regular pace of dashes, of button presses, I should say. So that adds quite a bit of challenge to dashing. So you can't just mash dash in any way, shape, or form, even though you know, doing subsequent or doing sequential dashes is valid and rewarding in terms of, you know, tactical opportunities and fighting a lot of enemies. The other downside is if you're doing this dash and you dash against a wall, it doesn't do anything. But if you're doing the sequential dash, the multiple dashes, if you run into the wall, you will fall over and be stunned for a few seconds, which can be fatal. So you really have to weigh the trade-offs of having more mobility against the skill requirement of doing the multiple button press timings, and also the danger of crashing into a wall and being prone, getting killed by the enemy while you're down. So what I'm saying there is that mashing is not an option in terms of mobility. So is mashing an option in terms of attacks? Well, no. Let's go out of town here, and I'll show you what the attacks look like in this game. Alright, so here we are in the east end of this map. If we take a look at the world map here, you can see we're here. Very nice looking world map here, and just as an aside, this game clearly takes its influence from Zelda in the sense that there are 4 quote-unquote temples you have to go to. The north temple is the air temple, the east temple is the water temple, the left temple is the forest temple, and the bottom temple is maybe the fire temple. But don't get the impression that this is that much like Zelda, because the temple quote-unquote design for each of these areas really doesn't have very much to do with Zelda. Each of these areas is broken down into sub-dungeons, and while there are like dexterity platforming type challenges, and there are like you have to press a switch kind of challenges, and there are also hidden areas, there are no puzzles in this game like you would find in a Zelda game, and there's also no reliance on getting new items to unlock different areas of temples, or having like each temple having a gimmick. So really this game is not a lot like Zelda, and I will get to that later when I talk about some of the reception that this game has gotten. Okay, so getting into the combat, you saw I just killed these 2 head crab guys. You know, there's another game influence, kind of a Half-Life influence. Those guys pop up and jump at you. And they're easily killed, but they can do damage to you if you're not careful. So let's talk about the combat first. Alright, so you have a sword. You can do a single slash, or you can do a chain of 3 slashes. After you do 3 slashes, you have cooldown, right? You're vulnerable. So that mitigates against you know, just mashing buttons. You also have a gun, but you don't have very much ammo. If you look at the top left hand of the top left corner of the screen, you can see that I have 6 pink bars there, and that indicates I have 6 shots I can use. The way that you recover ammo is by either hitting enemies or destroying destructibles in the environment. So you can recover your ammo, but you have to be careful about how you do it. Okay, so I'm going to shoot these guys just to give you a sense of what the gun is like. Alright, so that's how you kill them, and now you can see I'm down to 3 ammo already. So definitely cannot spam bullets. So all of these things mean that when you get into combat, you have to be very careful about using your ammo, you have to be very careful about your timings, you have to be, like, you know, judicious about where you are dashing, and it does end up playing quite a bit like Dark Souls, although it really isn't quite like Dark Souls because it's faster, and because there's less build variety in the game, it could maybe be compared a lot more to Bloodborne. Although, again, for other reasons that I will get into, that is also a very imperfect comparison. So what I want to, you know, really say with this whole part of the discussion is that this game borrows influences from a lot of games, but it is very much its own game, and you cannot pigeonhole it into being a such and such like. It is not like, just like, or derivative of some other game, and I think that that is one of its great strengths. You know, great works that appear to be very original usually have some obscure references that people just weren't aware of before coming across that work. Like, for example, when the movie Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon came out and it was so popular in the West, well, it's just because people had not seen that kind of martial arts movie in the East before that they thought it was so cool, right? And it was so successful. For people who were familiar with that kind of cinema, they were like, well, it's just another work like this. But that's one way that a game can be called very original, is if it comes out with influences that just weren't apparent. So a good example, again, Dark Souls, right? Dark Souls, part of a very long series of games like Kingsfield, Shadow Tower, and all the rest of it. But you know, it had the breakout with Demon Souls and then Dark Souls, and it was like, this is so original just because there were certain refinements in the game systems that ended up making it popular, but the large majority of influences had already been around for a long time. So that's one way that a game can seem original. Another way it can seem original is if it synthesizes a lot of different influences so adeptly that it appears to be its own thing without any outside influences, right? So it's like, oh wow, like this just does so many different things from so many different games, you can't pinpoint exactly where each influence is coming from. And I would say that Hyper Light Drifter falls into that category much more than, you know, being obscure and then having the breakout success. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the health system in this game. This is a point of contention and controversy, so I want to get this right. Okay, so if you look at my health here, you'll see that I have 5 health, okay, at the top. There's 5 green blocks. And if I suicide off here, I lose a health, okay? The next thing I want you to notice is that I have 3 quote-unquote Estises. I don't know what else to call them. Okay, I'm just going to call them Estises. I'm not going to say quote-unquote anymore, but I'm going to suicide here, and you'll see what happens. Okay, so I died. And I go back to the beginning of the area where it auto-saved. So I get up, look at it, I'm back up to 5 health, 3 Estus, okay? So let's try something different. Okay, I'm down to 1 health, better Estus up. You can see the animation kind of looks like the blood vial animation in Bloodborne. And in fact, that was something that was added recently to the game after the preview build, so I kind of get the sense that there is actually direct influence from Bloodborne on this game as far as the health animation goes. But that's just my speculation. Anyhow, you can see we're down to 2 Estises, so what happens if we suicide? Okay, we're back up to 5 health, 5 Estus. Now, let's try something different. Okay, what do I need to do? I need to... Yeah, okay, I need to... This is kind of complicated, the way that the health system works, so I have to make this very clear. Alright, what I'm gonna do is spend an Estus and then come back and suicide, okay? So I'm going to spend an Estus. I'm down to 2 Estises. The bottom right of the screen here, or actually it already did, I guess it already did the autosave. Normally you see the icon at the bottom right when it's autosaving. Okay, so now you can see I'm 2 Estises on the screen. Obviously, if I come back here and suicide, by the way, you can hold down the action button and it will speed up your revive animation. Now I'm down to 2 Estises. I revive with 2 Estises, okay? So, one thing you don't want to do ever is use your Estus before going into a new area, because you will not get it back, right? You could... Okay, so let's say I'm on this area. Okay, let's just say for the purposes of argument that I'm down 1 life, okay? I'm just gonna lose 1 life. Okay, I enter this area. No. This area. Sorry. This is very complicated. Spend an Estus. I'm back up to full life. And then if I suicide here, I'll be back down to 1 Estus, right? So you never want to spend that Estus before you enter a new area. That is a very bad idea, because you will lose your Estus for every attempt you make on the next screen. That's the main point I want to make here. This is controversial. In Dark Souls, if you revive at a bonfire, you always start with full Estus, right? So this is controversial. Some people really do not like it. Now, I just picked up another Estus there, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to suicide, or no, I'm going to spend the Estus, suicide on this screen. Okay, let's go back down here, and you'll see that this Estus is, this refill is back, okay? But what if I spend the Estus and then die on another screen? Okay, let's give this a try. Have to get across to here. Where was that? I'm going to talk more about the aesthetics in a moment, because this is very beautiful and there's much to comment about here. Okay, going to the next screen. Let's spend the Estus and suicide. Alright, now let's go back and see if that Estus we picked up is still there. Spoilers, the answer is no, it's not there, okay? Just gonna show you to make absolutely sure that this is what's going on. No Estus, okay? There's no Estus there at all. So what that means is you can clear an area of Estuses and run out and get to a boss and have no Estuses left, and you have no way to restore your life. So maybe you're at like 5 life and you have to fight the boss with just 5 life instead of 5 life plus 3 Estuses. Some people find that to be very unfair. I can see that argument. I can see the validity of that argument. I did actually beat the boss of this area with just 5 life and no Estuses left, so I can totally see that actually happening to people, because it happened to me, right? My solution to this problem would be to implement an easy mode to the game. And in the easy mode, you would not change anything about the game except for the fact that when you die, you always come back with full Estus. Okay? Just take out all the Estus refills from the game, and you die, you always come back with full Estus. Everything else stays the same. Okay? Why would they use this game design as opposed to that game design, the easy mode game design? Well, I think what it comes down to is each different branch of a dungeon is considered to be its own level. And the challenge is to get through the whole level instead of getting through a screen at a time. You know, like Gary Butterfield, I was talking to him on Slack, and he compared it to Doom, where, you know, you can use up the healing items on a floor in Doom, and then they're just gone, because the level is the level, and the items that are in the level are just, you know, one-time kind of things. And I think that's really the appropriate analogy there. So why is it that I think that this is kind of fair and not a bad thing? Well, there's two reasons. First of all, if I teleport back into town, you can do this from anywhere in the game. You can teleport back into town or teleport to any of the warp points. And if we go back to where that Estus was, you can see that it's back, okay? This item is returned now, and I can get it back. So the point is, if you ever use the warp, you are effectively resetting the level. You still can keep the items, like the money that you got in the level. So I'm going to show you how you get money in this game. Just go over here, pick it up, and you get money. Okay, I got one bit of money. 4 of those equals like 1 thing you can actually spend. So it's like, you know, they're almost like 4 quarters, and then you get $1, and you can spend it per dollar. If we go back, that money will be gone, okay? The Estus will be back, the money will be gone. Any guns you pick up or whatever will be gone, because you pick them up and you keep them. So if we take a look at our character here, you can see that we still have that 1 money that we picked up. So it's not a total reset, it's just resetting the Estuses and the enemies in the level. So what that means is, whenever you're going into a new area, you have to consider resource management. Like, the way I typically approach any level is, if I'm low on Estus, like if I'm like half, you know, I've got 2 Estuses left or 1 Estus left, I will go through the area and I will try to get as far as I can without spending an Estus. And then if I'm like, oh, this isn't gonna work out, I will just suicide and start the area over now that I know what the enemy placement is, and what I need to do, and try to get through it without spending an Estus. So what that means is you end up getting through the level without being low on Estus. Now, you might say, well, that's just too hard. I kind of can see that argument as well. However, that's where the exploration part of this game comes in, right? You saw earlier when I found that Estus at the bottom left-hand corner of this map, it was because I was exploring off the beaten track and I found it there. In fact, this game gives you a whole lot of Estus refill points all over the map. Like, see, there's one right there. Especially if you are willing to explore. So it really incentivizes exploration by making it almost mandatory with the health requirements that you have. So, like, there's two factors that I think add to the fairness. One, you can reset the level at any time to get all the Estus back. Two, if you die on a map and you say you started with full Estus, then you come back with full Estus, okay? And then I guess there's a third point, which is that if you explore, the amount of health refills or Estus refills that are available are plentiful. So really that all adds up to being pretty reasonable. But that being said, I could still see some people like just not enjoying the game because of those limitations, and saying, well, I'll explore the map anyway, so why would I need to deal with this crap? You know what? Like, that's totally fine, and I think there should be an easy mode in order to accommodate that, because I don't think it would ruin the game design, even though it does alter it somewhat. So that's my long talk about that, but that's going to get into another discussion, which is the difficulty. When I started this game, I went to the north route, okay? I think most people will go to the north route. It's up here. And the boss of the north route is quite difficult, especially without any upgrades. So that has given this game a reputation for being extremely difficult, but I don't think it's necessarily deserved. Why? Because when you start this game, you can go any of it, or you can go west, you can go north, you can go east. The south way is blocked off. If you find an area to be too difficult, you can go back and go the other way. Now, in fact, the east path is the easy path, okay? It's the easiest path to get into, easiest boss to fight. So what that means is you're encouraged to go this way. I didn't go this way. I actually beat the north way without upgrades. But it was quite difficult. And if you want to see me try to do that, you can check out the release build stream that I uploaded to my channel. So I can understand why people get frustrated. But if you look at Dark Souls, at Firelink Shrine, you can go 3 different ways, right? 3 different ways. Okay? You can go to New Londo. You can go to the catacombs. Or you can go to the Undead Burg, right? And you are encouraged by the difficulty of these areas to go to the Undead Burg. It's not gated. It's not like a sequential thing you have to do, but the game is considerably easier for you if you go this way. And a lot of people praise Dark Souls for that feature, and I think they should be a little bit easier on this game because it has exactly the same structure as the Firelink Shrine opening. You know, not to say this game is Dark Souls, but that's a point where they overlap heavily, and I think people should take note of that. The other thing I will say about this game is that it really has a downward sloping difficulty curve. The upgrades that you can get in the game are extremely empowering. They're very, very empowering. They make you so much more mobile, so much more powerful, have so many more combat options. But they do still require skill to use. Once you learn how to use them properly, the game becomes significantly easier. So it's not like, oh lol, I got, you know, I got Ultima, and now I can just do 9,999 damage to everything, and I don't have to worry about anything. It's not like that at all, right? It's not like you didn't get a win button, but you spend a little bit of time with the new items, new skills, new weapons that you get, and you learn what they're good for, and the game becomes considerably easier. So I would say that the hardest thing I did was actually go up and do this north area after that, the game started to get easier and easier, and now I'm doing the south part, and the west was like not easy, but it was just like, oh yeah, this is fun. You know, it wasn't like the boss. I beat the boss in like 10 tries, which was really pretty reasonable, I think. When you just start right at the boss and you don't have to do a run up or anything like that. So I think this game is getting a bad reputation because it has that downward sloping difficulty curve. It starts out hard and it gets easier. And, you know, that's the designer's fault, right? That is their fault. That is a problem with the way that people approach the game because of, you know, one, assuming that maybe each of these areas is of equal difficulty when that's not the case. Or two, you know, not realizing that the game will in fact get easier rather than harder as they go along. Does that make for good game design? Well, actually, I kind of like games like that. I like Symphony of the Night. Symphony of the Night has that structure. It starts out hard, it gets easier, and it gets easier and easier and easier until you are just God mode. I don't know if this game gets that easy, because Symphony of the Night is a very easy game, but it really does have that same structure. So, you know, you might say, no, a game should have a progressively increasing difficulty as you go on, and that's usually how you would design a game, but actually, I think the downward sloping difficulty curve works pretty well, so I'm a fan of that. Where I think that people have a point about the difficulty of this game is I think in the way that this game was marketed, I would say, is really something that has a lot to do with it. This game was marketed as being similar to Zelda, okay, when it was on Kickstarter, and it isn't. It's not. It has on the very, very superficial level, it's a 2D top-down game. You have a sword, and there's different, like, temple areas that are themed after certain biomes. That's it. That's all that's similar, okay? Aside from, like, really just the most basic things of top-down 2D gameplay that Zelda pioneered. So for the people who came into this game expecting a Zelda-style experience and got more of a, say, like, Dark Souls-style experience, I think that they really have a valid point to complain, right? Like, they backed the game under the impression that it would be this super pretty Zelda-ish game on PC, and they ended up getting something that was maybe not what they wanted. They wanted a more laid-back experience, or maybe like a more, I guess, cerebral experience, like wanted to do more puzzle solving, and they didn't get that at all. And you know what, that's really unfortunate, so I'm not going to say those people are wrong, because not everybody likes very hard games, and even just getting past this part in the east section maybe would be too hard for somebody who just wants to have a whole bunch of, you know, hearts to pick up everywhere and not have the combat to be all that difficult. There's nothing wrong with that. Like, I like pretty games. I love the look of this game, and I think it sucks that some people are not going to be able to enjoy the full thing that they paid for because it's too hard for them. So, you know, that whole thing with it being kickstarted, I think that is a valid thing that enters into the question. Like, when I backed this game, I did not expect it would be anything like Dark Souls. I had no idea. And the demo didn't give me that impression either. Like, it was hard, but it didn't really give me that impression. And I was surprised on release that it was like that. But I wasn't disappointed. I was like, oh wow, this game is just, it's not exactly what I expected, but it's still incredible, and I love it so much. But other people, like, you know, I've read reviews of it saying, this is just too hard for me, I give up, and I'm super angry because I like the look and sound and feel of this game, but I can't enjoy it. And that's really too bad. So that is, like, you know, really a valid point. But enough about the gameplay. I think we've talked more than enough about that. I want to talk a little bit about the aesthetics of this game. So one thing that is important to the aesthetics of this game is the look and the decision to not include text in conversations. So if this was a Zelda game, you would meet this person, and then a text box would pop up saying, "An evil frog has inhabited this temple, and you must kill the evil frog." Okay, no, that's not what this game does. Instead, it gives you a little picture, and all of the dialogue in this game is conveyed through these pictures. So whenever you enter a new temple, there will be a person who tells you what the boss of the game, boss of this temple is, and where they're located, and then you can continue on your way. And eventually, you will reach them. Another thing I want to talk about. Obviously, this game uses a lot of pastel colors, and that gives you a calming, maybe, like, in most cases, it would kind of imply a sort of cutesy or maybe, like, very sanitary kind of feeling, right? Like, you know, there's a certain style associated with, like, the art that is used in some electronic music that is very almost like modernist, kind of classy and serene. I think that this game does take some influence from sort of like EDM album covers and that kind of thing in its aesthetic. Certainly this diamond motif is very familiar to somebody who is familiar with EDM kind of covers. But this game is actually quite dark. You can see here, these are little, like, this is, okay, you know, first of all the characters are, like, you know, animal people kind of thing, right? I think the main character is supposed to be like a cat guy. These were, like, guys with a head, you know, they've been skinned or was it drawn? And they've got, like, heads on spikes, and there's piles of corpses here. Like, this was like a scene of genocide, okay? See if we can see any more of it here. So music is very serene. The colors are very serene. Very, very beautiful, like turquoise water, like you'd associate with the Maldives or something like that. But this is the scene of a genocide of these otter people by the evil frog people, okay? So that is unusual, certainly. Another thing, you get these titans, or Evas almost, from Evangelion. So maybe Attack on Titan or Evangelion would be like the big influences there. And whenever you run into one of these things, there's a musical cue that comes up. And this is something that you would see in some games like the Mario games. They use musical cues to integrate with the gameplay. But here, there's always a ominous version of the track that plays whenever you run into one of these titans, and I think that is so fantastic. This soundtrack was composed by Disaster Piece, and I think he did an incredible job. I believe it's a he. There's another health refill there. And you know, I think that the use of musical cues and the slight variation in the themes and the smoothness with which the different musical moods, you know, it's all fairly ambient stuff, but the way that they shift in and out is just absolutely incredible. Okay, so we've come into a different area now. Look, you can see that there's bodies floating in the water from this massacre that's happened. And of course, your main character is suffering from a terminal illness he's trying to find the cure for, and that's the reason why you're going on this quest. You can see more corpses down here, right? Let's go investigate. And oh, we found one of these things we need to clear the area. Animations are also outstanding. They really combine like the kind of rotoscoping type animations you see in Out of This World with more traditional sprite art. Maybe something like Gods Will Be Watching style sprites. They're very, very smooth and but still very low res. So you can see that there's the evil frog people are over there. So it's like, it's kind of like there's that combination of like, you know, cutesy animal world and horrible genocide, right? Combination of serene music and, you know, fast-paced combat or whatever, right? Like there's this combination of opposites that comes together so well. So now we can see another musical cues come up. And it's like, oh, you've reached the second area, so we're elaborating on the music, right? There's an extra voice added into the track. And now we found the warp point. And now we can warp back to town. And I'm not going to show you the boss or anything like that. I'm just going to take a quick look around here, and then we are going to go back to town because I want to show you a few more things there. So you see that purple door down there? That has the 3 triangles. We got one of the triangles, but if you have 3 of them, then you can get in there and you can fight the boss. And all of the areas are the same. They have the same pattern that way. And, you know, you can see that there are statues with the otters on them, and those are the people who were all massacred. And each of the areas is similar in that it has some native population that was massacred by the invaders. Why did this happen? We don't know. It's a mystery. It's kind of like Shadow of the Colossus that way, right? There's a very lonely, wistful, melancholy feeling, a sort of background of menace. And unlike a game like Titan Souls, I think that this game really captures that feeling from Shadow of the Colossus perfectly. And it, the quest that you were on is a little bit, you know, it's a little bit Dark Souls, it's a little bit Shadow of the Colossus, but those are both fantastic things, and it combines them in a rather original way. So, we'll just finish looking around here, and then I'll warp back to town. And now the music's gone. Okay, so what's going on? What's going to happen when we go down here? Oh. That's the kind of combat you can expect in this game. Okay. So, fixed enemy placements, for the most part. Sometimes enemies warp in, but they usually warp in at predefined locations. And, you know, having to be very careful about when you use your dashes, when you engage the enemy. Nice water effect on the ground there. So lots of enemies over there. And see, that guy exploded, so I could use him to kill the rifleman. So you can chain attacks with the sword and gun, and that I wouldn't consider spamming. It's just like a combo you can do. Sword and pistol specifically, I should say, and that will allow you to extend your attacks longer than you could do if you were just doing the normal 3-hit combo. And because your pistol recharges shots when you hit the enemy with your sword, it means that you can chain that attack indefinitely. But one thing I should mention about the combat system in this game is that there is no poise in this game. So if you continue to attack an enemy, you cannot break their guard and cause them to back down like you could in Souls. So you do have to rely much more on evasion and a lot less on... well, first of all, there's no parry riposte system, and there's no poise. So you can't rely on either of those things like you can in Dark Souls. And that does make this game play more like Bastion, I would say. But again, I think that's an imperfect comparison because Bastion is quite a bit easier than this game, and I think the combat is a lot more kind of like haphazard and spammy in Bastion than it is in this game. Okay, so we cleared out this area for the most part. See, I was trying to do the pistol sword combo there, but I couldn't quite get it down, and that just goes to show that this isn't a spammy situation, right? Like, getting that combo wrong and getting hit was a punishment for me whiffing the combo, okay? If this was a spam-based game like God of War, I would just keep spamming and I'd be like, oh, whatever, just keep hitting the buttons, it's fine. But no, I got punished. So even when you use the canceling like that, I would not say that you're spamming attacks. Attack back. you can aim as well. Oh, no, I didn't get that. Oops. Okay, let's kill this guy. Alright. I did want to continue on just to see if the music cues would come back. Like, this is the level of puzzles that you get in this game. Oh, press switch A to do the left thing. Press switch B to do the right thing. And then you get these kind of dexterity-based platforming things. But there's no, like, cerebral puzzles in this game. It's not like, oh, you know, what is the next prime number in this sequence, which is something I had to do recently in Neverwinter Nights. There's nothing like that. Just doing that to restore my ammo. Some people were saying it's not clear to me what are foreground objects I can break and which ones aren't, and honestly, I just didn't find that to be an issue. So there's no musical cues to come up in here, and I think I'm going to come out and I'm going to wrap this thing up because we're going on 50 minutes. It's way longer than I wanted to go, but I have so much to say about this game because I think it is so good. And I think there's a lot to talk about. So let's go back to town. I just want to show you one thing in town to kind of confirm my idea that this is a very dark game. So, you know, you're in town, nobody's going to attack you, they're all pretty cute. There's one of those otter people that got massacred over in the east. But, if you go over and talk to this guy... Oh, he came to the town and he had some aspirations. And then, he was accosted by the townspeople. Now, it's important to note that these people are the merchants that you buy things from. And they beat him and probably robbed him. And now he's consoling himself with alcohol. That's like really dark, you know, like that, you know, you move to town hoping to have some opportunities, you're all optimistic, and then you just get beaten by the townsfolk. So, like, this is one of the guys that was beating him. And you go and buy stuff from them. So... yeah, that's... and, like, look at how cute this little guy is. You can see the little animation. Oh, maybe I have to... oh, there we go. Oh! So it's that combination of, like, dread and ominousness. I don't think that's a word. And cuteness and serenity and all these different moods, and they're all mixed up together, almost like in Princess Mononoke. I think that is really fantastic. Or Spirited Away is even better example of that. So, final thoughts on this game. I think it is one of my top 10 games of all time. I haven't finished it yet. I'm, you know, maybe 75% of the way through the game. It's probably about, you know, 7 or 8 hours to finish the game if you're looking for stuff. Possibly up to 12. There's a new game plus if you want to play it. But just on what I have played so far, I absolutely adore this game, and it, you know, it's up there with like Symphony of the Night for me in terms of quality action games that I love. Even though it's much harder than Symphony of the Night, it's not that bad, and it does other things so much better than Symphony of the Night as well. So I'm just rambling, but yeah, it's excellent. Might not be for everybody, but if you can get past the initial challenge, and if you are willing to, you know, go to the east area first, and then the north, and then the west, as, like, I guess is a sort of canonical path. Like, you know, in Mega Man, you can do any area you want in any sequence you want, but there's usually a correct order to do them in. And the correct order in this game is the counterclockwise one. You go here, 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 and then here. If you're willing to follow that order, and if you're willing to deal with a little bit of difficulty, and you maybe like Souls games for their challenge, give it a try. I think you won't be disappointed. And if you are, that's fine. But this is just my thoughts on the game. So that's it. I will sign off here. So thanks for watching. If you made it this far, that's my very extensive considering Hyper Light Drifter.